Okay. So, well, let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me
Yeah.
today. And I'm super stoked to chat with you again. The last time we talked, I think you were saying that your the average tenure of you call them support heroes on your team had gone from something like 18 months to a little over 3 years. Is that what it's still looking like? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously you had to do something to change that. Tell me, but let's start at the beginning. Like, tell me about the pain points you were feeling that led to that. Like, how did you notice there was a problem in the first place?
So when the average tenure was really short, it was kind of the norm because SurveyGizmo was such a young company that to be with the company in general for a year was like a long time because we were really young at the time. So it seemed sort of normal, but then it just became this trend that after 6 months or a year and a half, people started getting antsy in their support position, and they wanted to go elsewhere. And because of the sort of stage of growth the company was in that worked, there was a lot of opportunities for them in other places in the company. But once, we were still growing, but we were not growing in quite the same way or in the same stage of business that we were before. So those opportunities weren't just popping up everywhere like they had been before. And we had sort of changed the way that we hired. So we found people getting sort of antsy, for lack of a better word, in their position and wanting to grow and wanting to move into other opportunities, but they didn't necessarily want to leave the team. They loved their coworkers and the team and the atmosphere and all of that, and they didn't want to go anywhere, but they wanted to be able to say that they were making progress. So, and sort of, I guess the pain points came from just the team wanting opportunities that weren't there, and that impacts morale. It can be hard to do the same thing day in and day out and not feel like you have I don't want to say a light at the end of the tunnel because that makes it sound terrible, but more like something that they're striving for. So that's when we started talking about it as a team. What do you guys want to do? And we had this idea for a long time to sort of gamify staying in your job longer, but also just as a way to recognize people for doing a good job for a long time. Helping customers is not an easy job. A lot of people think it's an easy, anybody can do it sort of thing, and it's not. And so if someone is consistently showing up with a smile on their face, making customers happy for 3 years, that deserves to be recognized. So yeah, the question was pain points, and the answer is the team. The team was running into sort of a feeling of a lack of opportunity, and as such, if the morale is impacted, they don't want to come to work all the time, and they start not doing their best work. And it's not necessarily because they're bad employees; it's because they're looking for something new.
Sure. Yeah. And so SurveyGizmo, if I remember correctly, like, you're really good at promoting internally, right? Like that's how you're structured. And so some people were moving to other jobs within the company.
Yeah. So so I was hired as a support hero myself when the team was fairly small. And after about a year and a half, all of the people I was hired with were moving into other positions. And we were at a good period of growth where it made sense for us to take some of the people that we had hired in other positions and move them into either development or sales or QA or whatever. And we still do that. We still give people opportunities to learn new things and try new things. But we also need to be bringing in people that are sort of qualified in those areas, right? So it doesn't always work to take a support hero and make them a developer. Sometimes they have the skills and the aptitude, and they've done it in their own personal lives. They've researched and learned about development, but it doesn't always work that way. And so we were at sort of this like magical point when I had been here about a year and a half, where it just made sense. We were able to move all these people into these other positions. And then as the company grew, we still promoted internally, and we still do, but where there's more often opportunities where we actually do need to pull in somebody, a skilled developer from the outside. And so those internal opportunities are still there, but they're not every opportunity.
Sure. And were you starting to see people in support leave for outside companies when you no longer had all of these other paths for them to take within the company?
We did see some of that, but we also saw more than that, just people wanting to do that. And, I feel really thankful that they spoke up about it and that they said something like, hey, I'm looking for something else, to give us an opportunity to get ahead of it and look for an opportunity for them internally, whether that was a new job or just a slightly, sort of change in responsibilities. But so they started speaking up about it. They started just sort of, you could just feel the team's morale. We used to do an anonymous survey. We had a million different versions of them. Being a survey company, we do lots of surveys internally. And we used to do this anonymous survey, and there was just like a lot of feedback about, gosh, I wish there was somewhere I could go. I don't want to leave the team. I love this company, but, I need to move my career along. So
you really brought it to the team, right? And you said, hey folks, like, what can we do here to keep you from leaving? What did they say?
Yeah. So sort of my general MO as a manager is, if I don't know how to solve a problem, there's likely someone else that does. And a lot of times it's the team, who better to tell you what's going to be best for the team than the people that are living and living it. And so, it started with some attendance hiccups, like, gosh, we're really struggling to come to work regularly. And that makes it sound worse than it was, but it was more just sort of a trend we started to see, that Mondays and Fridays, gosh, it seems really hard to get the entire team here at once. And that was frustrating. So I didn't want to have a team meeting where I scolded them for not coming to work. I like to think that people do things for a reason. So rather than saying, hey, gosh, you guys are terrible, why aren't you here more often? I said, hey, I've noticed that this is an issue, and I want to know if anyone wants to talk about what we could do to change it, and what's the solution. And not only are they going to be able to provide me better answers about what the best route is, but they're also going to give you buy-in. If they're part of a solution, they're more likely to be interested in that solution than one that I just come up with myself. So yeah, I brought it to the team and I said, what is going to make you come to work in the next year? That was actually the whole question. The whole brainstorm is, let's talk about what's going to make you want to come to work in the next year. And of course there was a number of, silly suggestions, like more puppies and like free stuff. But, we broke out into, we're a smallish company, but a somewhat large support team. So we broke up into little groups and we just had brainstorms, and a lot of the groups came back with the same ideas, which is that we need something to move us forward. If you've been working here for 4 or 5 years doing the same thing, and doing it to the best of your ability, and then you have the same title, responsibility, and roles as someone who just came in, just hired, presumably they're being paid differently, but we're not as transparent about that as like Buffer is, for example. So they sort of came up with the rubric themselves.
Okay, so and I want to get to that in just a sec, but just to clarify, how big was the team at this point? How many people were involved in that?
So this was a year or two ago. The team is actually about the same size that it was. We were really big, and then we shrunk a little bit, and now we're growing again. So I would say around 20 people.
Okay.
Around there, yeah.
And you all broke out, but like this one theme emerged, and that was like, give us some sort of opportunity to move up.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did that end up looking like?
So that ended up looking like, and again, this is something that a general idea that my manager before me and I had before, which was essentially to gamify support or gamify, we're like a bunch of nerds. And so we really like the idea of, like, in video games, you get to level up and you get experience points and that kind of thing. And so we were like, how can we make this somebody's real life? And it was one of those ideas that was like, oh, that's really great. We don't really have time for that. And we kind of backburnered it. And then this became like very clear that this is what we needed. And it was the right time to implement that idea. And so what came out of it is, like I mentioned, a rubric that just has the criteria for different levels. So if you start here, then if you do these certain things, you go to this next level. And if you do these certain things, you go to this next level. And what does that look like? We made it really clear. So people, there's no more of this, there's no opportunity for me here. There's not only a clear guide, but it's also on the support hero or the support representative to move forward their career. So I'm not going to chase them down and try to level them up. If they want to level up, it is sort of their battle to fight. And they do, and they get really excited about it. So it's kind of this document that breaks down what each level means, how you have to, how you get there, and sort of what the perks are once you do.
And you've shared that with us, and we were able to PDF it, and so we can share that with anyone who's interested. But can you kind of like highlight what the different levels are, what those look like?
We wanted to look at it. It was sort of a combined, how do we help the support heroes and how do we help solve our problems as well. So we came up with the levels by saying, all right, what's the bare minimum? What do you need to do to work here and be successful? Not sort of the level one. Everybody starts there, sort of bare minimum. And then the second level, to develop that, I looked at who are the very best people on the team, who are the ones that I struggle to come up with constructive criticism for because they're just so good. And we sort of wrote down what are the characteristics, what do they do, not just how do they work, but like what kind of skills have they developed. And so we put that into bullet points. And so we took those goals, sort of what those people do, what we wish everyone else would do as well, sort of stretched them a little bit, and then that was the second level. So we have you start as a support hero, then the second level is that you're a superhero, but for resume's sake, you are an advanced support technician. And then you get certain perks with that. So part of it is that you start earning work from home days. We just started having remote employees at SurveyGizmo, but for a while we weren't doing any of that. So this was you have proven that you can work by yourself. You earn a certain number of work from home days, but also they get pulled in, second level people get pulled into special projects, and they have more responsibility. They have sort of the same core job duties, but they get a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more autonomy, and they're sort of looked at too as experts. And then there's the third level, and I just described this to someone else as the first level is, bare minimum. Second level is, what do you know? So show us the actual skills that you know that are sort of above and beyond. And then the third level is, how do you share those skills? How do you mentor the rest of your team and bring the level up of the rest of the team because you have these skills and you can teach them and share them? So second level was advanced support technician. Third level is advanced or senior technician and mentor. So they are not only an expert, but they can teach anything. They can take on any escalation. They're sort of a support, Jack or Jill of all trades.
Cool. And I mean, clearly it's worked. It solved your turnover problem. I assume you don't have the attendance issues nearly as much anymore.
I mean, I would like to hear from other companies. I think that we can't be the only one that the day after 4th of July, everybody's sick. I think that's probably happens everywhere. So that's still a struggle, but no, I mean, that's built into it. It's like, you don't get to level up if your attendance isn't good. If you don't do the bare minimum of being a good employee, but you meet the rest of the criteria, you don't get to level up. And we do, when people want to level up, they provide us the proof that they're ready. And then sometimes we go back and forth with them a couple of times. So we'll say, hey, you're close in all these areas. Here's a couple of areas that you need to work on. Let's schedule another meeting and we'll look again. So I really try, if I'm calling someone an advanced technician, I want to make sure that I'm not diluting that title at all by giving it to people that aren't truly ready.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you So like those were the pain points that you solved for. Have you seen any like unexpected ancillary benefits in addition?
Yeah, so many actually. In fact, it was one of those things that I was like, I don't know if this is gonna work. It worked really, really well. So some people, part of me felt like I was just sort of throwing a bone to somebody who wanted some recognition, but I didn't think it would really change their behavior that much. I thought it would be, almost like a participation ribbon or something. But I had a couple of people that I swore it felt like they changed overnight. Like the next morning, they were suddenly like portraying these leadership qualities, and they were just helping in a different way. And like they felt like they had been recognized to the team as an expert, and so then they felt like they had the permission to be an expert. It was sort of like I don't not necessarily like an ego thing, but more like you don't want to tell your peers something to do if you're not their manager, but if you're recognized by your manager that said, sort of this person has my stamp of approval, they suddenly felt as if they could just, they could help all over the place, which is amazing. And I want them to all feel like they can help all over the place. But, we sort of, we showed them to the team as a resource, and then the company also started seeing them as resources. So I'm constantly getting feedback about the team, but particularly the advanced technicians saying, this person just bailed me out of a situation that I really needed help with. They're so great, and they become sort of ambassadors for the team. The other thing that happened was, do you know that meme that online that's like, hey, my job has this cool thing where if you do work really well, you get a bunch of other work, right? I didn't want to create that problem where, you're so good at your job, here's a bunch of extra stuff to do. I really didn't want to do that to them. That said, there's been some times where we had a tricky situation that was sort of fell on the leadership. Hey, you're going to have to call these customers and give bad news, or, we need to figure out how we're going to communicate this thing that might be a little bit tricky. And I, myself and my co-lead couldn't do that on our own. It was sort of too big of a project. So we pulled in the advanced technicians and just said, let's see how this goes. And we just pulled everybody into a room. We said, okay, here's the problem. It's going to be a little sticky. What do you think we should do? How should we go about it? And within an hour, the work had been, sort of divided, conquered, and I didn't have to do anything. It was like, they were like, okay, boss. Like they were so excited to solve the mission that, and sort of show that they had earned their title, that it was amazing. I sort of like looked around, like I didn't expect that, but they felt, like they were in fact the best people for the job at the time. And knowing that they were the ones that needed to get it done, they really took it seriously, rather than, oh, here's this other sort of giant gross project I have to do and nobody recognizes how awesome I am, that kind of thing.
Just like we're the people for, like, okay, yeah, we got this, like, because you've granted them like the authority to tackle outside problems in this way.
Some other interesting benefits were, just training. We've always had a good team that, when a new person comes in, they're very welcomed and they, they're well loved. The team really rallies around them. But having these go-to people that we can say, these are your advanced people, they know everything. And if you can't find one of your leaders or someone to answer your question, here's the next best guess. And that took a lot of strain off of leadership in terms of it just answering questions. We have a robust application that takes a lot of learning to get up and running with, and sort of spreading out the resources there was really awesome. And then additionally, we had some changes where some of our leadership in the support team moved into other roles, and we weren't quite sure that we wanted to keep doing leadership the way that it had been. So we were experimenting with new things, and we sort of had this pool of people that were already sort of showing their leadership potential, that we were able to sort of divvy up some of the tasks amongst, and that's been really great as well.
Awesome. So it was just like, it went from this thing like, we'll turn this out, I don't know, to like the best decision you've ever made at work. Like,
yeah. And, I've had a number of conversations with people about how much I hate that customer service as a, sort of customer service representative as a job is this, unimpressive, entry level, I'm going to just do this until I get another job kind of job, because I think it's a really noble thing. And I think that if you can do it well, it's very impressive. Like, I want people to be able to go to their moms and say, Mom, I got this customer service job, and have mom be proud. And I realized that that's not really how the world is right now. And I've spoken with our CEO just recently about how I wanted to make it my personal mission to have, change the world and make them feel like this is, it's like teaching, people, I wish that people appreciated teachers a little bit more. And that's kind of what they're doing, is they're teaching our customers. So this leveling up program actually gave them sort of tangible progress that they could say, like, not only did I take this customer service position, but I'm making progress in this position, and I'm advancing my career, rather than I'm stagnating in my career, waiting until I get my real job. And I'm proud of that.
You should be. I mean, and that's the only way we're going to change the definition, right? If people who work in the field are making progress and advocating for themselves, they're advocating by extension for the profession,
right,
and vice versa. And so the more people are advancing and feeling good about about the work they're doing, I think the more we get to remove that stigma.
Right. And when we hire people, a lot of people come in saying, essentially, where can I get and how fast, when they're applying for a customer support position. And I like to sort of turn it around and say, you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay here and you can still get places, and make sure that we're hiring people that want the job and that want to advance in a customer service career.
Yeah, for sure. I remember, I believe they still do this at Basecamp. It was very clear always in the customer support job descriptions, this is not a foot in the door. If you want to be a designer at Basecamp, you're not going to get there by applying for one of these customer support positions. You have to love support and want to do that and be really good at it. Because like you said, everyone thinks, oh, anyone can do that.
Right.
And it's absolutely not the case at all.
And, I've talked about this with our team before as well. If I can hire people who are really great at development, and I have before, but they are the first people to get burnt out and ready to move on. And so, I think we all know how expensive turnover is, training, all of that. It behooves us to keep people in their positions longer, happy. They're going to make happy customers. They're going to be more knowledgeable. We're not going to, lose all of that knowledge and training if they move on, because, oh, we finally got somebody who's, knows the application, knows our customers, is really good at their job, and now they're moving on to another position. We have to start over again. So getting the right people in the role definitely helps as well.